What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. And I guess, after about a half hour of trying to get this thing to work right, it finally wants to work right. So, if you're here on this stream, I guess thank you so much for being here and actually returning to the channel to check out this live stream. Now, I was going to have a special guest here on the show again today. That was going to be Stevie J's Reviews, but he is on a different part of the, in a different part of the world, so he's definitely on a different schedule. So I understand if he could make it here. Besides, I guess it was probably kind of a good thing because things have just gone kind of awry here this morning and don't really know what's going on with all this stuff. YouTube is, I don't know if it's YouTube or if it's just my internet connection. Who really knows? You know what I mean? But anyway, if you guys are here to hear me flap my gums, thank you so much for being here. And, make sure you smash that like button. And again, I do apologize for any of the inconvenience that I may have caused you, or any of the confusion or anything like that. I don't know. I'm assuming there was probably something going on with the internet and YouTube. Who knows? Who knows? I don't really have to blame it on anybody. It doesn't really matter. Hell, it could have been my computer for all I know. All I know is I do appreciate you all being here anytime you guys are here. And again, I do thank you for that. And if you did return here, thank you so much for your patience. So yeah, I was going to have a special guest on today. Stevie J's Reviews was going to return here to the channel. Hopefully we can get him back here on the channel here soon enough to go ahead and have a discussion over these things that we were going to talk about today. But, I'll go ahead and save that conversation for another time. I'll probably end up having to update the thumbnail and everything here. But, again, thank you guys so much for being here, if you are here. So, I guess, since I don't have my guest here and I do want to go ahead and flap my gums a little bit, let's go ahead and talk about this thing that we've been seeing out there in the news. I kind of discussed it on Friday on the Trailer Park Live, and then I was even talking about it more on... Well, I mean, I guess it's been kind of a big thing. I was talking about it, I think, on Friday, even on the morning movie chat, and that is, just like with the things going on and the movies right now. There's these big articles that have been going around. Like everybody's talking about, the X-Men, and how the MCU is going woke and all of these different kinds of things. And I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? To me, I always kind of laugh at these kind of things because, for one, I always look at this. I always look at who's out there making these articles, who's writing them, who's putting those out there. And these particular stories, it seems like it's always the usual suspects, right? It's always like we got this covered, this new one that's come out. What's this, Film Around the Reel, or Film Reel, or the Real Films, or I don't know, man. Does it even really matter these days? Because everybody seems to take these articles and just take them and run with them when there's absolutely no source to these articles coming out. Like I said, this big one going around now is going on with the X-Men, and they're gonna cast people of color to play Xavier and Magneto and all this kinds of stuff. And I don't know, man. It's really a bunch of silliness. Now, I'm not sure if you guys watch. If you guys pay attention to Mad Max movie reviews, is it Mad Max movie reviews here on YouTube? He just did a video last night. One that I actually really particularly like, because I like his channel anyway. He's a pretty good dude, and I've talked in the past how sometimes it seems like he focuses a little bit too much on certain people. And last night he finally did a video talking about something else, and it was a subject I quite liked because he was talking about a lot of things that I kind of feel myself, that I understand where people are coming from when it comes to these things. And he was talking about, like, this kind of outrage culture, and everybody being so upset. We see that the media plays on a lot of these kinds of things. I think honestly these studios do lately as well, like Marvel Studios and things like that with some of their marketing campaigns. But it's something that it's actually perpetuated by us fans, where we go out there, there's all of a sudden there's this rumor that they're going to be bringing in people of color to play Magneto and Professor X in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's coming from sources that they're I won't say that they're nobody. They're just other websites out there that are putting out these stories, and it's like come on, look at who's giving us the story. Okay, look at who's giving you the story. Now, of course, you're going to see a lot of people repeat the same story from a lot of the same sources, but most of these websites will list who their source is when we see these kinds of articles coming out. Like, and it's been a while since I've been to any of these sites, but like if you go to like an H&N Entertainment, like we got this covered. I don't know about bounding into comics. I've never been to their website, but I know they're one of them out there as well. Comicbook.com, cosmicbooknews.com. All of these places typically list their sources down in the just down just in their article somewhere. There's a link to wherever they heard this particular story, and we can see that most of these stories about them announcing that they're saying that they're going to be people of color used to play Professor X and Magneto in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're really just rumors. That's all they are. There's nobody. Marvel Studios hasn't come out and confirmed this. Kevin Feige hasn't confirmed this. Victoria Alonso hasn't confirmed this. Alan Horn hasn't confirmed this. Nobody from the studio has absolutely said anything about this. Now, however, I will say that we can't be surprised if and when that happens. The Marvel Studios has been pretty open about what they are doing. I think Disney as a whole really has. They've kind of been pretty open about they're trying to get other people out there to get some more inclusion out there in the studios, like in the films, people behind the camera, writers, and different things like that. And there's absolutely no problem with that. There's no problem with it being just people of different races out there doing things, as long as they're the best ones for the job. That's the ultimate thing that it matters. I mean, if we're doing inclusion just to include, it's that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best person for the job. That's what we need when it comes to these films, is the best person for the job. I don't care what race they are. I mean, I'm mixed with so many different races. I have absolutely no care who is in charge of what, as long as we got the best person for the job. Okay, and that's really what matters. It doesn't matter about who's in charge of what, who's whether whatever the color of their skin is or anything like that. It's really unnecessary. But however, we do see, like I said, we've seen some of these studios come out and say, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Like I said, Marvel Studios has been pretty open about who they are, what they're doing, and what they're trying to promote, and things like that. And hey, more power to them. So I mean, that kind of, for me, that just kind of says, like, can we really be that surprised or that upset when they go and do these things? They've been pretty vocal about it, and but again, like I said, Mad Max yesterday was on his video. He was talking about something very similar, and how it's kind of like like these marketing campaigns, like they're playing on that market. There's always going to be people out there who are going to be upset by these things. There's always going to be people fighting back against those people too, that have to voice their opinions about it too. And there's nothing wrong with voicing your opinions. That's what social media is for, so we can voice our opinions, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the problem is a lot of it just, everybody just kind of starts fighting about it and going at it, just going at these things, going at each other's throats. And it's like, man, is any of that really necessary? And all of a sudden now my encoder is once again saying that things are going bad. But you guys let me know if you guys are here watching, if it's going down the toilet or not. And yeah, it does. All right, apparently that's just how it's going to go today. Pick back up there. There we go. Come on. Pick back up. Yeah. We gotta love these things. The beauty of live TV. I bet you maybe one of these days I'll find a better, and I guess I could be using StreamYards and all that kind of stuff. And I guess I don't really, if I'm here talking by myself, I don't have to be using my encoder or anything. I guess I could just be going live here just off of the show. Of course, sometimes I like to put things up there on the screen and show all that stuff. So that's why I use my encoder. But of course, yeah, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. What is going on here? Oh, man. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? This has to be a problem with either the encoding with OBS or with YouTube, or it could be Google. It could be any of these things. I don't know what's going on here, man. This is not good. This is not good. Yeah. Oh, okay. It's back up again. It's back up again. We're coming back up. We're coming back up. I don't know what's going on with this thing. It might just be the morning. Probably just some technical difficulties. Maybe they're there at their home offices working on everything, or maybe they caught me here trying to talk some sense into people. Maybe there's somebody out there in Google land or YouTube land saying, "Oh no, Trinity's out there talking about this stuff and how people are using outrage to to market these movies." And that's one of the things that Mad Max was talking about is people, like these studios and things are using people to talk, to promote these films basically by, all this outrage and stuff. Like, we're not only are some people perpetuating a problem, but you're actually giving a lot of these companies free advertising and things like that. And hey, they're happily going to take it every single time. You know what I mean? They're gonna go ahead and be like, "Oh, hey, you want to be upset? You want to use your being upset to promote our movies and stuff? Okay, yeah, sure. We'll go ahead and run with it." And they'll go ahead and continue to do these things. But but one of the things, Mad Max was even saying on his show yesterday was, he's not going to be like upset if they change, like people's skin color, whatnot, change. As long as it's good for the story, and as long as we get some good stories, and that's ultimately what I'm worried about. Because there's one thing I came to the conclusion of a long time ago, and that's that these movies aren't ever going to be like the comic books. I mean, in just so many different things we've seen that they are not. Ooh, is it back up and running? Yes, we're back up and running good. And that's the thing. Like I get when people get upset about those kinds of things. I mean, because a lot of these, and that's something I was talking about on Friday as well. A lot of these properties, these characters, are people that we've loved for years. That we're deeply invested in, and that's why people get upset when they go and change and when it's either race change or gender change, when they're bringing these characters to the big screen, is because these are beloved characters. People have invested their lives in these characters, and to just see it kind of in their eyes, somebody crashed a plane into the mountain, is just something that they can't stand for, and that's perfectly fine. I understand that. I get people being upset about these things. Like I said, I mean, and we're right to feel that way, and that's okay, and it's okay to voice our opinions about it. But like I said, one thing I've talked about a lot is the studios, when they see so much of this going on, people just so upset and triggered and all these kinds of things. I can guarantee they're not sitting back there in the studio laughing. There's probably some people there laughing. There probably is. They probably get some sort of sick, twisted entertainment out of it. But the ultimate thing is they're not good. I mean, they're just gonna kind of laugh, and if they are, they're just gonna laugh away all the people who are out there upset. Like, they want to hear, from somebody who's being rational about their discontent. And that's not to say that these other people are being rational, but they go out there and they're upset, and they're not spreading hate necessarily. Maybe they're just kind of being hateful in their opinions. And like I said, these things, and you got to understand that these things are things that people are invested in. They're invested in this. I mean, not only emotionally, because they're characters that we've grown up with for years, but also because, like, a lot of us have spent money, lots of money, investing in these properties and really caring about them. So yeah, people are going to be upset when these kinds of things happen. But overall, I mean, is it that important? I mean, it probably is if you're one of these people who's out there. But these studios, they're trying to appeal to a larger audience, and I guess that's something we've got to. I don't know. I guess in a way we've kind of got to understand is that I mean, they are ultimately, they're trying to make money for their studios and things like that. That's kind of that's like the point of making movies and having the studios and stuff like that too. They got stockholders and things like that. They've got to they've got to make money. And unfortunately, it does come at some sort of, it does come at an expense a lot of times. But again, I mean, they can't just make and they make movies to cater to people who want to see this stuff. Rather, and that's a lot of people who want to see this stuff, and that's the thing where it becomes tricky, is because they can't cater to anybody specific. even though I can guarantee you to many of us, it does seem like they are catering to specific people and not other people. And we've heard people echo that sentiment a lot, where you're catering to this specific group of people and brushing us aside. And that's one of the things that shouldn't be done in these types of situations. But again, I mean, when it comes down to these movies and them making these changes, I mean, I get people being upset about it. I can't say I particularly have ever been upset about it, because again, a long time ago, I decided and knew that a lot of these things, they were. These movies weren't going to be like the comic books, and like I said, I don't think any of us are out there looking for these movies to be made directly from the comic books. I don't think anybody out there that I know wants to see like a comic book directly adapted to the screen, but they still want to see basically the source material being paid its respect. And that's a different thing. That's not, respecting the source material doesn't necessarily mean that I want to see exactly what's in the comic book be on the screen. It means I want to see these characters how they were in the comic books being put on the screen in that way and portrayed in that way. That's what that means. It doesn't mean that, like when they did Infinity War, like it had to be exactly like the Infinity War comic was. Not even the Infinity Gauntlet, but Infinity War the comic. I mean, that's not what that means. It doesn't mean, when we see a Captain America movie, that it has to be exactly like an adaptation of a specific comic book. It just means that we want to see Captain America portrayed the way that he was, that character and his likeness, the way that he was in the comic books that we grew up loving. Just like me, so many people out there right now are upset about Spider-Man, and like him being booted out of the MCU. The deal going on there with Sony and Marvel, and just how it ended up not working out. But me, like, I'm somebody who's not upset by that, because I've liked Spider-Man in the MCU. He's been great. He really has. I really don't have. I mean, I've got complaints about it, but overall, it's been a good thing. It's not the Spider-Man that most of us are used to, and that's why I wasn't upset when I find out that Marvel Studios will no longer have control of the character. Now, I understand a lot of people out there are going to be upset because they're like, Sony don't know how to handle this character. We've seen what they've done in the past, and all of these different kinds of things. And hey, they've got an argument to be made there. But at the same time, I would honestly, actually, at the same time, say that they've Sony's had success with what they've done. They've had success with what they've done in the past. So I get. They've had success, but they've also had, in those successes, they've also had times when it's been not so great. And again, they won't be complete dumpster fires. Like I said, I take a lot of these movies and I see them, and I'm like, they're not that bad. I've seen worse movies out there. It's just now we have such a high expectation of these films when they come out, that people don't really understand it. And it's like certain people latch on to things, like the MCU Spider-Man. People are so upset they have latched onto that, and that's why they're upset by the fact that Sony and Marvel haven't worked out a deal, and that Spider-Man would no longer be in the MCU. Where me, I'm not upset about it, because I figured, I just kind of figured, like, well, Sony's gonna go back, and they're gonna go back to the drawing board and make some movies. Oh well. That doesn't mean that they have to reboot. That means they can use the same characters and all of that kinds of stuff. Now we got this other article going around. Somebody spread it out there that the Sony and Disney, they're in the middle of a deal, and they're going to want to take. Sony basically wants the MCU to take Venom with them. And, that honestly, that would be probably the better deal. Honestly, for Sony, that might be the better deal, is to go ahead and let Marvel Studios have control of their characters. And use them, but then maybe them actually have producers in there helping say, okay, here's kind of what we like. We don't want this done. We don't want this done. And, working more synergistically together. Now, however, I do understand Sony wants to make the money from the movies, because they don't have the toy distribution and things like that for Spider-Man, where Marvel does. So, that I think that in itself is kind of what makes this dynamic really tricky with this particular property, is the fact that, Sony really don't really make squat if they give up, some of their money. But honestly, the better thing for fans, for these studios, I honestly truly do believe would be better for them to go ahead and decide to play nice and play ball. Everybody gets along and everybody wins. And By that, I mean, if Sony just goes ahead and says, okay, we're going to put our people in the studio. We want our people working with you and being active, helping bring these movies to life, because there's things, that still are properties. And, but go ahead and use them. Marvel, please take them and use them, because it's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit Marvel Studios and Disney. It's going to benefit Sony, and it's definitely going to benefit us, the fans, who are paying for it. But again, at the same time, for them to make that deal and say, okay, well, you got to take Venom, and we can cut you in this much. It almost seems a little bit absurd too. But honestly, I mean, if they're doing it the way they're doing it, as far as I know, like Sony's making all the money from the movies and the distribution. Then I mean that's Sony's money to make, but Marvel should be making some of that as well. I feel. Now I don't know enough about the business or about the contracts they got going on, but to me that would honestly be some of the better stuff for them to do is to go ahead, give those rights, not give them up, but do whatever they can to play nice and make these things possible for us all. But again, I'm not upset with Sony having the rights. I mean, sure, maybe the quality goes down a little and Spider-Man won't be tied into the larger scheme of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and everything that's going on there. But is that necessarily a bad thing? I mean, at some point, the movies kind of get to be a bit crowded, and I think that's hopefully something that they're going to take care of going forward in the MCUs. Where we got this last Avengers film, even the last two really, they were crowded with a lot of characters, and they're really heavy, and that's why the movies are pretty long, and they're just a lot to take in. So I think it'd be better for them to all just be maybe do these big event films instead of how were they doing them once every few years. It seemed like we were getting one, like the Avengers films were coming about, I don't know, what were they, about every 2.5-3 years we were getting a new one as they kind of grew, built up bigger. And maybe now it's just time for them to do just like bigger event films like that, like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War and Endgame War, to start doing those maybe once every 5 years, and maybe all the characters just kind of cross over into each other's movies. They got the streaming service now where they could do a lot more of play around with a lot more of that. Maybe just save it and just scale it back a little bit on the bigger crossover type movies, so the movies don't get overcrowded. Because when they bring the X-Men into the MCU, the X-Men movies are going to be overcrowded in the first place, and I think that's why I revert back to my video I did clear back in February, where I think it's smarter for them to introduce a couple mutants at a time, and then introduce a couple more, and then just do a bigger scale X-Men movie, just like they did the Avengers. Just build it up with a few characters in each movie, and then do a bigger full scale X-Men movie. And then after you do the X-Men movie, that's when you can just go ahead and put the X-Men in some of the different movies, just kind of sprinkle them in throughout the different properties. Because when it comes to the X-Men characters, there is a ton of them. There's a lot of characters that go with the X-Men properties. So I think it would be better for them to just take those and sprinkle them out. If they brought Captain America back in, sprinkle in Wolverine into a Captain America movie, you know what I mean? Or maybe even a Cyclops, just different stuff like that. And sprinkle them in the different areas. You don't have to make standalone films for all these characters, and you don't have to make, and obviously when you put out these movies, you want to brand them a certain character, like you would say, Wolverine and Captain America, together, and or something like that, or like, whatever certain timeline or specific thing in whatever movie they're doing, and just get a couple of different characters in there. Maybe have Captain America and 3 other characters in there with him, so you only have 4. You don't have to do a whole like Captain America Civil War, where it's almost like, how Civil War, like, you, especially after you watch Endgame, Civil War seemed overcrowded at the time. There was a lot of characters in that, so it's kind of hard to do all of them justice. And then it seems like, man, it's kind of overcrowded, and then you see it compared to Avengers Endgame at the end, and you're like, okay, well, man, this whole last battle scene makes Civil War look like a joke. The airport scene, you know what I mean? Because it's like you either like Endgame seems like too much, and then now at that point, it makes it makes Civil War seem like, okay, that was either too much or too little. Like you either need to go big or go home, and that's why like a Civil War, it might have been better to have less characters in there and not done the Civil War thing. But then we don't have Civil War and all that setup that went into that. But I think you guys may understand what I mean there when I'm talking about that. Is it'd probably be better just to keep it scaled back, like how the Avengers really only had the handful of them in there. It wasn't overcrowded with characters, whereas and plus they were all on the same team. Um, you know, it just seems to be that way, so you can concentrate on just a fewer set of characters rather than having to concentrate on say 12 main characters or so, as opposed to just focusing on 5 main characters and then just having other little players in there as well. But I don't know, that's just if you ask me. Again, this is something I could go on about all day, and again, like even with, like I said, they do the race changes and all that stuff. We know that's going to be happening. I mean, it's just something that's going to happen. We know that it is. So I mean, don't ever act surprised when you hear these stories out there, and certainly don't let any of these articles and things out there go triggering you into some sort of outrageous reaction that maybe you're not going to regret later. Maybe you're not going to feel foolish about it later, but maybe to others out there, you look foolish. You look silly. Sometimes we gotta take into account some of those things too. And I know somebody out there might be saying, oh, but Trinity, you've reacted to stuff before. Well, and I gotta tell you, not. I mean, I have, but not really. The biggest thing that you'll find on my channel of me reacting to something is the Victoria Alonso thing, where she commented about the X-Men. Goes, oh, I don't even know why they call him that. That's so outdated. There's female characters on that team too. And the thing is you can go watch my video. I didn't overreact or anything. I'm sure I expressed some opinions that some people agree with and some people may disagree with. But overall, my what I shared was the fact that Victoria Alonso she's one of these bigger producers. If she don't know why we call it the X-Men, there's a problem there. There's a disconnect. We call them the X-Men because every single Fox movie was called X-Men. It had X-Men at the very beginning of it because you know what team it was on there? X-Men. I mean, that's really what it all had to do with. And that reaction video that I did, I wasn't angry. I mean, the only thing I was upset about is that Victoria Alonso don't realize why we call it the X-Men. We call it the X-Men because that's the name of the team. That's the name of every single movie that we've had come out. So it's in our heads. I mean, sure, there's the X-Force and all these other things out there as well, but that's why people call it the X-Men, is because that's what team it is. It's Professor Xavier's X-Men team. That's could be a reason why. And like I said, you go watch the video. I wasn't even upset. The only thing I was upset about is that she don't get it. She don't get why we call it the X-Men. And I may have been upset about the fact that they're going Disney seems to run or with this whole outrage marketing thing, and you don't have to. You've already got the fans there. You don't have to turn them away by running with this stuff. And that's what you're ultimately doing, is you're catering to one fan and not everybody. By doing this in their marketing scheme. Kobe Reviews Movies, welcome back to the live stream. Damaj and I, welcome to the live stream. Yeah, hey, I finally got this thing up and running. I decided, I guess, YouTube and Google or the OBS or whatever decided to start working good at about 8:30. About a half hour too late from when I started my show. But yeah, guys. So I mean, we shouldn't be surprised when these studios are making these gender changes, these race changes, and stuff like that. But again, like I said, look at who's telling the story here. What's the article coming from when somebody is saying that? Like this whole X-Men thing. This article came from some website. I can create a website. You can create a website. Anybody out there with the money can create a website and write articles on it, and articles written to get clicks, written to get upset because they know that somebody's going to be upset about this. You know what I mean? We see a lot of them out there that are writing these clickbaity articles to get people upset on one side of the fence, but then you see, somebody else that's gonna, like say, like let's use Star Wars for example. Somebody, one of these websites is gonna be like, oh, they're race changing these characters and this and that, because they're catering to a specific crowd of people who are gonna feel upset about that. And then another website, their opposition, I guess you could say, is going to, and you know what, for all you know, the same person owns both of these websites, because the other website is going to be saying, is going to be doing something that's going to trigger the Raylo shippers. You know what I mean? There's going to be somebody else writing an article to upset those folks over there. And for all you know, the person writing these articles, the people behind these articles, the owners who own these companies, it's probably the same owner. It could be the same owner for all you know. And I'm not saying that there's any of them out there, but I can guarantee you there's probably some of them out there. Like somebody sitting there going, yeah, see, I'm getting clicks because I own this website over here and this website over here. This one is triggering these people over here that read this website, and this one is triggering these people over here who read this website. I mean, it's just genius. And then what happens? I mean, that's, it's just a perpetual cycle. That's why I say you should go find out who these sources are. Are they reputable sources? Do they have sources like people who actually said this stuff? They don't. Chances are they don't, because I haven't found a whole lot of them out there that are reliable sources. And and that's when it comes down to things like, we've got, all, like I said, all the different websites out there, like the comicbook.coms, the Cosmic Book News, the Bounding Ended Comics, the We Got This Covered, the H&N Entertainments. Most of these are just people who have a website who are trying to make money by getting you to go to their website. They get money off of clicks and read their articles. And sure, they're going to have different articles that are written different ways, and occasionally they probably actually have some pieces on there where they do have, maybe an exclusive interview with something, which, maybe they just got a sit down interview with somebody. I'm not saying that they don't occasionally have like actual stories that aren't clickbait, but a lot of these are made and written to get people to feel certain ways. And we know there's all kinds of websites out there. Like you can go look at some of these video things like Now This, or Vox, or Fox, or CNN, and all of these different things. I mean, they're out there actually doing this, catering to this, to a certain niche and market of people. That's what they're there for. They just want you to click on their websites, and the easiest way to do that is make provocative titles and write provocative stories. Provocative. What does that mean? To provoke. It wants to provoke you into a reaction, to make you feel a certain way. So they use that provocative title to get that click, to get you to be like, what? What? They're casting people of color as Xavier and Magneto? What's this all about? And then you go and you click on their website and you read the story that's made to make you feel like they're going to change these characters, and there's nobody really official backing this story up. This didn't come out of anywhere. Then the thing is, we could look at it and say, well, there is somebody that actually said this and backs this up. And that's Kevin Feige, who has actually been openly out there saying, yeah, we plan on, we want to get more, be more inclusive in getting certain directors, certain writers, and different things like that. That's really about the best you can run with. And so that's that kind of validates what they're saying in the article. But look at the way it's validating it. It's not validating it by means of Kevin Feige specifically said something. Right? That's the thing. That's why I say a lot of these clickbaity websites don't even look at them. Like I stopped looking at these things, and that's maybe why I don't cover so much of these news and clickbaity things anymore. I don't go out there and, when there's these theory videos, I don't go out there looking for the proof to debunk any of these theories, because a lot of these, like the theories out there are coming from 4chan, from Reddit, from fans sitting there typing stuff on a little website just like me and you. That's it. That's where most of this stuff comes from. 4chan, Reddit. I mean, occasionally we probably get a post from somebody who works in the studio and releases something under a certain username that, like, okay, this guy, knows what he's talking about. This guy obviously, okay, yeah, sure. Occasionally we get those out there. But I mean, are any of them verified? Are any of them completely reliable? Of course not. Of course not, because, these people who are doing these leaks, if there are legitimate leaks, they're trying to remain anonymous so they don't lose their jobs. That's why you won't get any official source. That's why it's so hard to say with these leaks and everything. That's why I pretty much stopped paying attention to them. All these clickbaity websites out there, you know, I don't pay attention to them. For the one thing, I mean, what do I need to listen to them for? I mean, they don't have anything substantial that they're going to tell me. They're not writing articles on anything that I need to know, right? When a movie's announced from a studio, when it's getting ready to go into production, or in some stage, the studios usually announce it. You know, they usually announce it. So then, you can go be like, oh, okay, well, where's, who broke this story? Who did so and so from Sony Studios tell? Where did that article come from? Oh, okay, it came here from Variety or, The Deadline or, any of those kind of bigger ones, or, Cinema Blend or, and it can occasionally be a we got this covered. Sure, sometimes they probably get a word out from somebody. They put a lot of these studios just put press releases out there. You know what I mean? Announcing a lot of these things. So people go write articles on them, and that's really just that's as simple as it is. So I don't pay attention to all of these other websites because they have nothing to offer. In case you go to any of these websites, you can see the provocative titles and stuff they use. Go to We Got This Covered right now. Look at their titles. Look at and see if they have any actual official stories that are exclusive to them. And the ones that are exclusive to them are ones that some guy sitting in their little office or maybe sitting in a little house just like me, just wrote an article on with a provocative title and a provocative story that has really no substantiation to it other than, hey, I just thought of this story in my head. It was something that I wanted to talk about. Like there was this article that went happened a while back. God, I can't even remember who wrote that article, but I remember seeing it at the time. This whole big rumor that Sony or Apple's gonna buy Sony, and if once Apple buys Sony, all the Spider-Man rights will revert back to Marvel Studios. That story, it wasn't an official story. There was never any buyout. Apple never made the offer to Sony to buy them out. What it was some guy on a website that was making a speculation article that said, hey, I'm just going to put this out there. If Apple ever bought Sony, this would happen and this would happen. That's all it was. It was just some guy writing an article. There was no official story to it whatsoever. But yet, I've seen people actually out there talking about this story once again, that Apple wants to buy out Sony, and it's not true. It just hasn't happened. I mean, the conversation hasn't even happened. It was some guy writing an article, and somebody probably recently unearthed this once again, and everybody's talking about it again, and it's bull crap. When that happens, we'll know. We'll know that Sony's trying to buy out, or that Apple's trying to buy out Sony. We'll know when that happens. It'll be big news. It won't just be some little story on We Got This Covered or Bounding Into Comics or H&N Entertainment or MCU Cosmic. It's going to come from an official source. An official source, And like I said, the official source could be from any of these sites. Because all they got to do is go look at the press releases that were put out by Apple, by Sony. That's all they got to do. They put these press releases out there. So again, that's why I say a lot of these websites, I don't even pay attention to them anymore because they're full of clickbaity crap. They don't have anything official information to tell me. And plus, when I do videos on leaks and theories, they're my own theories that I'm just dreaming up in my head because I think about this nerdy stuff way too much. Demogeni says, either way, the mouse is evil. It will continue to consume and destroy. I don't think the mouse is evil or anything. I mean, I just think the same as anything. I worked for Walmart for a number of years, and we see Walmart constantly in the news, in the media, getting slammed for stuff. And I'm like, I worked for Walmart for years, man. There's nothing wrong with Walmart. The company itself is a good company. I mean, they employ a lot of people. They make money. They do a lot of good for their employees. The thing is, what's bad about Walmart is they have bad managers in there. They get bad managers in there, and that is the problem. Bad leadership, bad managers, and that's what leads to the downfall in a lot of these stores and a lot of these companies and things where we end up seeing these things in the news. It's a lot of times it's not. I won't say it's an isolated incident because they don't necessarily have oversight on every single one of their stores. They're not keeping an eye on each and every little thing. You know, the big corporation is, and they're relying on people in certain positions to keep an eye on these things. That's the thing, and it's no different with a place like Disney and things like that. That Disney wants to make money. They're trying to do something good. They're putting the best people they think they can in these positions. But of course, there's always going to be people that get in and just kind of do what they want. Have you ever seen the movie SLC Punk? Kind of like that. At the end, like I decided that to make that change, I'm gonna have to destroy it from the inside, right? You know what I mean? And that's the thing is like these people, a lot of these people, when they have their ideas, their agendas, or whatnot, things that they want to do, they're pretty quiet about it until they get in the position they need to be in, where they can start being more vocal about it. You get, you go along with the flow, you get into that position of power, and then you're like, okay, well, now it's my turn, and here's what I'm gonna do. That's what happens. The same thing happens, corporate America everywhere. And let's not forget that these studios, Disney Studios, Marvel Studios, Walmart, Kmart, Target, all these things, it's corporate America. So nothing goes any different. And that's why on Friday I went into my speculation that Victoria Alonso will soon be taking over Marvel Studios because Kevin Feige isn't going to be there forever. He's going to want to make more money. Somebody's going to want to promote him and give him more money. And who's going to ultimately end up being in charge of it? Who's going to take it over? The person who's been groomed. The person who's been groomed to do it. The same thing happens on every single corporate level out there. So it is the mouse, but it's not necessarily the mouse's fault. It's the mouse because of the people who were hired into these positions to do this. Because that's what they do. You sneak in quietly. Ooh, what was that? I can't even remember. Y'all know what I'm talking about. That story. Man, I know. Now all I can think of is Monty Python. when they snuck when they snuck into the little thing and got into the city and then they broke out and all that stuff. It's the same thing, they're sneaking in under the radar, you get the job, and then all of a sudden you get in the position, now you're vocal, and now you can do something about it. And then at that point you're in a position of power to where, there's not a whole lot of people that can say nothing about it except for the higher ups. And the higher ups are like, oh, well, we got this person that's been reliable, we're not gonna knock them down now. We're not gonna knock them down now. And that's ultimately what happens. Aggressively relaxing. Welcome to the live stream. Aggressively says, I love this Magneto rumor. One man was born the master of magnetism. Awesome. Also, he is a black Jewish guy. This is suddenly unbelievable. Oh, aggressively. You crack me up, man. You crack me up. Demajani says it's not about believing the story. It's because the X-Men is already diverse. It's more like Marvel pandering. Plus, this would be hand-me-down role. And yeah, and no, I believe you. You're right. The X-Men is exactly that. And I'm not sure if you caught my Trailer Park News yesterday, where I kind of played on that whole thing that the X-Men is an allegory for Malcolm X and the civil rights movement and all that stuff. Stan Lee himself. I did the video yesterday. Being Myrtle. And I did that video just being silly because that's the thing, we hear that argument out there, oh, the X-Men is an allegory for the civil rights movement. Well, it's not. Even Stan Lee himself has come out and said that it's not. They're not allegories to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. He's come out and said that that's not. It just happened to be convenient. And do they inject that into the story? Yeah. They inject it into the story, but they don't beat you over the head with it. So yeah, I completely agree with you about it, about X-Men already being diverse. 100% agree. Now, is Marvel pandering? I don't know that Marvel is necessarily pandering, but it's something I've already said that they're going to come out and do. I don't know that they're necessarily doing it to pander, but they are doing it under the guise of more inclusion and things like that, diversity and la. And like I've talked about numerous times on my channel here, is movies, the film industry for the most part has been diverse for a long time. It's just people make a bigger issue out of it when it comes to certain movies and things like that. and the hand me down role thing too. Yeah, I get you there too. I completely agree. Now the one thing, we've heard this argument out there, and I've even talked about it, is to bring these characters in, Magneto and Professor X would have to be, they would obviously be a lot older now for him to have gone through the Holocaust and stuff like that. It'd be, pushing 100 years old plus, to have been a part of that. And again, that I get when they would, why they would want to make that change and change the background, but that doesn't mean they have to change the race of the character. But I would also argue that since what they did in Avengers Endgame with, the time jumping and all that stuff, messing up the time stream and stuff like that, it could be that they could easily make it to where, maybe the characters went from, that time back in the past to the current time and jumped forward in time from, from time in the past. Maybe Steve Rogers and all this time went back there and said, "Hey, I got this way. We've got this technology. We need to get you guys to the future because all of this stuff is going to happen." And while who knows, whatever. You know what I mean? It could be that, or it could be that maybe they're mutants and they age slower. We all know about that 10-year sliding scale, right? With that Marvel does in the comics. Yeah. And which is actually kind of funny. They actually referenced that in a Gwenpool comic recently. And no, you don't have to read it. You don't have to read the Gwenpool. You don't have to read the Gwenpool book. I read it for you, and let me tell you, unless you just like stuff that's supposed to be funny that's not funny, you don't need to read it. But yeah, I mean, it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary for them to have to do the race swap just to do it. Now, if they actually change their backgrounds and stuff like that, played with it a little bit, I understand where that would come in if it plays into the narrative of the story and the character they're going with. But again, once again, that's not respecting the source material of those characters. And that's why I say that's why this is ultimately a big deal to a lot of people. And I've talked about this. This doesn't even just relate to the Marvel comics. It has a lot to do with the Star Wars as well. Is the fact that these characters are beloved characters that people have loved for years, and people are emotionally invested in them. People are financially invested in them. People are just invested in them because it's something that they love when they grew up. So when they go and make these changes, naturally people are going to be upset, and I totally get that. And I think that's what a lot of people misunderstand when they're seeing people upset about these things, is they don't get, because maybe they're new, maybe they're normies, maybe they just came into the franchise, maybe they just started watching during the sequel trilogy, maybe they just hopped on board, maybe they were never invested into the comics or the MCU until like the past couple of films, so they somebody like that don't necessarily get it. And then there's some people out there who have been invested in it and be like, I don't really care. I just want to see good films. And that's kind of where I stand. I don't care. I just want to see good films, even though I am invested in these characters and want to see them brought onto the screen and see the best versions of them. I won't play into the whole getting mad about this stuff. I mean, just make the damn movie and make it good. And just make it good. That's all I want to see, But again, I won't fault anybody for being upset when they make these changes. I certainly can't. Aggressively relaxing says X-Men is only diverse because the SJWs at Marvel pandering to liberals in 1975. This is why Marvel is failing. Aggressively, you make me laugh, man. You make me laugh, dude. But again, like I said, I mean, Marvel's been pretty open about what they're gonna do, so it'll never be any surprise. You won't see any surprise out of me when they do any of these changes. They've been open about what they're doing, about what they have. They absolutely have. The Star Wars franchise has. I'm telling you, you go back and watch. There's some bonus features on Star Wars, on Rogue One, a Star Wars story, where in some of the bonus features, they really literally outright said why some of these people got the roles that they did in the movie and different things like that. I mean, they've said it. They've said it. So for anybody to be surprised, to me is absurd. I'm not saying that anybody's stupid or that they're fools or anything, but they've come out and said exactly what they're going to do. So and that's why I can't be upset about it, because I already know. They've already said. I already know what's coming. I already know what they're going to do. They've said it. So I mean, again, it comes down to a thing of, do you want to support it or do you not want to? You don't have to support it. If something comes along and I don't like it, I don't see it, and I don't want to see it, I won't support it. You know, and that's just how it is. It doesn't mean I'm not gonna go out there and cause make a bunch of hate videos about it, or foam at the mouth and turn red in the face in a bunch of videos about it. I'm just gonna be like, guys, they're doing this. I'm just not into it. That's about it. Oh well, on to the next thing. But we can see there's some people out there who will see it, be triggered, and constantly be triggered, and go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about it, and it gets to be completely ridiculous and absurd. And I get tired of seeing some of that stuff sometimes. I'm sure you guys do too. And that's kind of why I started. That's not why I started my channel, but that's one of the things on my channel is I'm not here to spread hate. I'm not here to go on and beat some subject to death. The subjects I will beat to death are the ones that need to be talked about and the ones that need to be addressed. And that's like, this particular, what I'm talking about here this morning. It's not the, I'm not upset at what they're doing. I'm upset, well, how is that? I'm not going to keep talking about a very specific thing. I just talk about, like how I feel about it. And, cause it's something that pertains to a lot of different things, not just very, one specific thing. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and beat The Last Jedi to death. I'm not going to beat Ryan Johnson to death. I'm not going to beat, Anna Boden and, oh man, who was the other guy? The other director for Captain Marvel? I can't remember his name. I'm not gonna beat them to death. I'm not gonna beat Brie Larson to death. Like these things for me, they're just come and go. They're just come and go. It was a story that had. I mean, freak the Brie Larson thing in that interview. Shit, that's been almost a year ago. A year ago. It's probably been over a year ago, and people are still talking about it. I don't got nothing else to talk about. And that's what I don't like to do. I want to talk about the overarching issue, the bigger picture, not just that one specific thing. The bigger picture. That's what's more important is the bigger, because the bigger picture, us talking about that and getting that out there. That's what I mean. It's not going to solve anything. We got to do something if you want to. I mean, that's where it comes into writing the companies, getting a hold of the companies, telling them how you feel, sending them letters, letting them know. Because making YouTube videos about it, being upset about it, the studio's not watching it. I mean, they probably watch them, but they're not taking it seriously. They're like, well, they're talking. They're not talking to us though. They are talking to us. They're talking about us, but like, come to us. Come to me. I know certainly, in times in my life where I had jobs, people were talking rumors and stuff, and I always gave it up because there was like this one time some really serious stuff happened, and everybody was you walk into the room and everybody's talking about you because it's loud as hell, and then all of a sudden you walk in the room and it's quiet, nobody's talking. And then everybody's looking over their shoulder at at the corner of their eye, trying not to look at you. I've been in that position before. Then, like actually out of the blue, one day somebody, one of the other people came up to me and was like, hey, what's going on with this and that? Everybody's talking about this and that. And, there's several other people there in the room. And I said, hey, you know what? I give you my respect because you came to me and asked about it. Everybody else is talking about shit they don't know about. And I'll tell you, pretty much went into the discussion and that was about it. So that's the thing. I mean, like, go to these companies making a billion YouTube videos about being upset about something. They're not going to listen to us. They want to, and obviously these companies, they're making money. They're making money, so they're going to be like, "Wow, we hear you, but it hasn't hurt us. It hasn't hurt us." And that's the thing is, everybody wants to talk these boycotts and everything, but the boycott does no good if the company isn't affected. You know what I mean? Like, this certain amount of people boycott this certain thing, but there's so many other people coming and getting into it that they're not hurting. They're still making their money. And that's the thing. Even if it's not making, like we see with like the Galaxy's Edge, we see all these things going on out there with even the Star Wars, people are like, oh, well, it's affecting them. Well, yeah, I mean, they're losing some money in some parts, but overall they're still making the money that they want to make. So they see, like, they don't see they can't, how would you say, they can't make the difference up there. They can't be like, well, people are saying they're upset, but we're still making the money, so how upset are they? You know what I mean? And that's the thing is their pocketbook isn't being affected, so they can't make that correlation. They're just like, well, we hear all these people being mad, but they must still be going to watch the movies and buy the stuff because we're still making money. We haven't started losing money on this stuff yet. And that's why, I mean, it takes a lot and a lot to make that change, and why it may ultimately not be changed just by people boycotting something. Aggressively relaxing says, imagine the insult being handed down a classic role. This is why I refuse to act in any play that isn't original and made for my exact size, gender, and tone. Oh man, you crack me up aggressively. Demogene says, gotta run, catch you later on. Yeah, man, we'll see you later. Have a great day, Demogene. I hope you're doing good. And hey man, what about that job? Did you get the job? You went through the interview and everything. Did they decide yet? Did you get the job, man? I hope so, man. Anyway, I got to go to as well, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel today. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed and all of that good stuff. You know, it helps the algorithm. I don't want to have to make videos or post on Twitter about how I'm upset because the YouTube algorithm is screwing me and YouTube's not doing me any good, and Google and just all this stuff. Like, everybody's against me, man. And then I'm going to have to start going out there and throwing shade at different people to garner somebody's attention so they'll come and watch my videos. Ugh, God, it's just easier if you like this video and share it with a friend, right? And come here and interact. It's just easier. So you should do that. So I don't have to yell at YouTube. So I don't have to be like, make posts on my community wall, be like, man, YouTube's just trying to screw me, guys. Can you guys help me out and give me a like? I don't know. Maybe I just see far too much of that. But anyway, thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel today. After all of the technical difficulties and everything that happened, and just a whole lot of stuff going on. Hopefully we'll get Stevie J's reviews back on here very soon to have that discussion that we're going to have today. Now I'm going to have to go through here and change the thumbnail and all of that stuff. So anyway, that's all I have for today. Don't forget, tomorrow's new comic book day. Go out to your local comic book shop and support them. Thank you all so much for tuning in. You all have a very great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.